Hey, welcome back to Freedom Algo. Today is a low volume scalp day. So I want to talk about this for a second. On futures, there's what's called a rollover date where you have the contract rolling over and a lot of traders are switching to trading the new contract. You can see up here in the top of my screen that it says 0325 because this is the March contract, but some people are still trading the December contract on the futures, and the March one becomes available earlier, but it has low volume. So on the rollover days, there's usually kind of this 1 to 2 day period where some people are still trading the December contract, some are trading the March, and it sort of splits the volume. If you add that to the fact that we're right near the holidays, the volume's just very low. And you can see that here. There's just not a ton of trades available. So you can see that there's just not a lot of volume. The sheer number of candles is very small. So that kind of tells you everything that you need to know right there. So there's only a few trades that I really plotted today, and there's not very many like great ones. And I'll go up here in a little bit and see if there's anything else up there. So let's take a look. So coming in this morning, there was an uptrend working, and then you get a break here. And so there's a new high in place already up here, but but after the break of the trend, there's no new high yet. So you get a pullback and you get a first entry, and then you get another pullback, and it becomes a second entry long over after this red bar. But let me zoom in. That is just a really tiny bar. There's not much you can do with that bar right there. Like you can't really, it's not bullish, so you can't really take it long. You can't really take an engulfing bar here because these are all matching lows. So the reason this is marked green is that you had to wait for this bar to close in a bullish stance and then enter. And what you could do on a trade like this is instead of just entering one tick above this bar, you could try to drop a limit order somewhere and see if it fills you in a little bit of a better spot and then get it. But even if you did wait and go one tick above this bar, it's still fine and it still worked out totally good. But it's just a huge bar, 13 ticks for just the fact that, I mean, I guess not huge, but bigger than we've been seeing lately and just not a lot of volume. So then you end up inside this kind of range here. Eventually you get a failed breakout. Unfortunately, there was no way to enter this because it's bullish. You get the bearish move, you get a lower high, but it's a bullish lower high. If this was a bearish lower high, then I would have said that that would have been a fine way to take a failed breakout. But there's just no good setup there. The other thing was from this low, there's a first entry, second entry short, but it was still within kind of like an upward movement. There wasn't a really bearish candle. If there was a really bearish candle here, then I might have said that that would be okay, but there just wasn't. Finally, it breaks down and there's an overshoot, and this is actually a second entry long. So I think this one, you could argue that this one should be blue. We could even do the old green blue. The reason I marked it green though is that this is a lot of bearish pressure. And if there was a higher low, then I would have said that that higher low would have been blue, like somewhere over here. But there just wasn't. This is a nice setup, though. Like this bar, it does break down. It's very bullish. You're really far from the EMA. It's a failed breakout of that zone. So you could argue for it. It is a second entry. It is an overshoot. On an overshoot, you're expecting another move. If you took that trade, you would have caught a runner and you would have been pretty set. So, I mean, if you're going to take the risk, that's where you should do it. Again, I think it's a green. I don't think it's a blue, but I will say that you could argue either way. Just depends on how you look at it. I do think the higher low, if there was a higher low, would have been a blue. It runs all the way up, and then you end up in this move where it just becomes this sort of tight sideways range. Now, I did drag this range over, and you can see the level came into play. We don't need that blue line. There's a possible up channel that hasn't been confirmed, and I was thinking maybe if we come down, we might confirm this up channel, but there's no confirmation. We need a third test of this to show if that's really in play. But I did draw a measured move from there to there. It ended up not really being that very useful because it didn't play out as an uptrend like that. It just turned into another spike up and then a sideways range. So I don't know if that's just a target as a possibility for the measured move. But you can see here that this is just a really tight range, and we were stuck in this thing forever. I took one trade in there that was pretty decent right here. And all that this is you got a new high. So you got a first entry and a second entry long on a failed breakout. It's not quite a triple test because you can't really count that one right there. But it is a failed breakout. It is a second entry. You're expecting a new high after this up channel broke. So I think that that's totally fine to take. There's a higher low that comes over. There's a few of them, but it's just kind of janky. This price action just not very good. Finally, over here, there is a first entry, second entry long here, but it closes below. So I didn't like it. And you can see, I don't think it would have worked if you tried to take that. You would have been sitting sideways, and you would have maybe been able to get out in a little profit, but that's why you don't take that. You wait. If this closed inside, then I would have said, yeah, you could probably take that second entry long and ride it to the high, but it wasn't ready. It does break down, and it taps this old range area from this high before. The thing moved on me a little bit. Didn't mean, yeah, it moved on me very slightly. There we go. So you can see it did come off and bounce there, but I don't think you can really take that. I mean, again, there's just not much here. And you can see, even off here, there's just not really, there's a 1 second entry long short, but you can't take a short there. And then you get this possible failed breakout to the long side, but there's just equal lows here. There's just nothing really here for me. I just don't really see any trades there. It could be the case that this is just turning into a bigger range that looks like this at this point, but it's not super reliable. So I would just say that today's one of those days where if you got your trades early, it's probably not worth trading much longer. Maybe the volume will pick up later, but I doubt it. So that's pretty much it for the day. It was a basic day, really small volume, but there's some scalps to be had, some decent trades, and there was some runners to be had. Again, if you caught this one, you definitely got a runner, and that would have been the trade of the day. If you had a better setup over here, there would have been a short, but I just didn't have a good one. I was really hoping that we would get a first entry, second entry long that failed, but this candle right here, this really bearish one that I wanted to short below, it didn't break higher and then reverse. On a shorter, smaller time frame today, you might have had a failed second entry there, which would have been valid. So I'll just put an arrow there because I forgot to mention that. If you were trading a lower tick chart, there might have actually been a failed second entry long here that would have been a decent short reversal setup. So I'm just going to say that. I didn't take it, but it would have been a good setup, and I was actually looking for it when it was happening. And you can see here now, we might finally make the new high. And even if we do, there's a solid chance that this breakout's going to fail. So we'll have to see what it does. But I'm going to wrap it up here, and I'll be back to do it tomorrow.